Welcome to a new YouTube live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Fidèle au poste. This is not the idiom of the week, but it could be. If you're live right now, please say hi in the chat. I see we have Connie. Bonjour, Connie. Thank you for being here as every week. I know that this live has been announced really, really late because the truth is that up until this morning, I actually didn't know if I was going to be able to make it. I've had a rather challenging weeks. It's been emotionally challenging. And I just, I haven't managed to put together the work for this live class until today, which is why you haven't heard from it before, because I didn't know until the last minute if I was going to either deliver the worksheet to you or if I was going to have to apologize for not being able to make it happen this week. But I am here. As some say, I'm here, I'm queer, and there's no end. So worksheet is available on the Telegram channel as usual. The link is in the description below. Today we are speaking about learning with your emotions, or using your emotions to learn and mastering your emotions. I have actually chosen this topic because I had quite a challenging week emotionally, and I figured it was a good idea, even for me, to review these things and to bring you a class which I actually never really taught this topic on YouTube. I did teach it in the French Accelerator a couple of times. I spoke about the emotional guidance scales, things like that, in the French Accelerator, in the manifesting workshop, and also in the workshop about energy clearing, which we're going to speak about a bit more today. So if you don't have this, you can always download it from the Telegram channel, especially if you're watching the replay. So we have Tony here. Hi, so cool to see you here. Connie is saying, I'm glad you're here and sorry you're struggling. Yeah, it's okay. You know, it's the thing with personal growth is that if you're really, really into it, it doesn't never really leave you alone. So yeah, I'm glad I'm here too. So today's topic is 3 simple strategies to learn with your emotions. To be honest, it's not just about learning, it's about achieving anything, because learning French is a personal growth endeavor, just like any other. And so you can use emotional management to be able to achieve this, and you will be also able to use emotional management to achieve the other things, like any other thing that you want to achieve. So the strategies that I'm sharing today are really, really broad. The bottom line, basically, and that's the very first thing that you can write on your worksheet here, is that emotions are the driver of human behavior. That means your behavior, my behavior, his, her, their behavior is driven by emotions. And some people don't like to hear this, but I think it's really important to understand so that you actually know what you're doing, because it's something you cannot put your head in the sand about this. It's going to backfire. Like, I know some people, for example, my ex-wife used to hate the idea that she was not completely rational and that she may be actually driven by some emotions, you know, like fear or joy or anger or whatever. And I think it's really important to just acknowledge that as long as you're a human person, you have emotions, you know, man or woman or non-binary, it does not change anything. I mean, the way that you react to your emotions can be different, but you have emotions and they will be the most important decision factor in your behavior. And very often what we observe, for example, in psychology studies on this topic, is that a lot of people will actually make emotional decisions and then will find a way to rationalize it by bringing in psychological arguments or rational arguments. It's just kind of what we like to do as humans. And I mean, it's not good or bad, it just is. But understanding that your emotions are driving you is really the first step towards being able to steer your behavior in the right direction. And I think many people are not able to do that. And it's sad. And I don't want you to be one of those people. I want you to be able to achieve what you want to achieve. So emotions are the driver of human behavior, and becoming aware of your emotions is the first step to become able to leverage your emotions to learn efficiently in the worksheet, but really to do anything efficiently at all. So we'll see a couple of strategies here. Some of them are short-term, some of them are more long-term. Some of them are easier, some of them require a bit more practice, but I'll share a mix, and I'm sure you'll be able to get some from that. So Tony's saying, someone to be rational, like in Star Trek terms, Vulcan, and be objective and emotional. Yeah, some people want to do that. And I mean, perhaps I was like that when I was younger, but then I learned all this stuff, and I'm like we can't, like, it's not a thing. We're not like Vulcans. I don't actually know Star Trek. I mean, I'm very ashamed of saying that. Maybe you're just going to like dislike me for the rest of my life. But I actually, it's something I still have to get into it. I only know it through the Big Bang Theory, which gives me quite a lens onto Star Trek. But yeah, like, you know, Sheldon Cooper and how he wants to like think that he's unemotional, but really he isn't. Yeah, story of the human life. So yeah, and that's like, you know, most important point, your emotions are going to be your driver. And two, it's possible to actually, because emotions are very complex, right? Like there are lots of very varied emotions. You do have a little like list of all, like I probably not all, like many emotions here on your worksheet. I found a really nice wheel of emotions that I did not print, so I cannot show it to you. This is dumb. But there are lots of emotions. But the good news is that you can really break them into two categories, okay? You have negative emotions and positive emotions. And you could even group them under like an umbrella term. Well, negative emotions, you can consider them to be pain. And in that, I will also include fear, okay? Like fear, pain, discomfort, okay? This is the negative emotions. And then you have the positive emotions, which we can regroup under the umbrella term pleasure. So pleasure, comfort, enjoyment, you know, anything that you enjoy or anything that is not uncomfortable, that will be in the pleasure area. And I think it's important to rephrase pleasure as comfort and pain as discomfort, because it's really what we are speaking about when we speak about learning. Learning is profoundly uncomfortable as an experience. You would be more comfortable if you were not having to learn anything. You were just repeating the things that you know. It's what your brain wants to be doing. The brain wants to just keep repeating the pattern, and you know, we know it's safe. We've always done that before. We never died. We're gonna keep doing that. But of course, if you do that, there is absolutely no growth. So this is what we call your comfort zone. And the brain strongly associates this with pleasure, with safety, with being safe, and just being able to continue on like we have been living. You know, your brain is wired to keep you alive, not to make you happy. However, to be happy or to be able to grow, basically to be able to achieve anything, you have to be able to deal with a certain amount of discomfort. And that's what a lot of people are not doing, because it's objectively hard, okay? And I mean, I have the renewed experience this week of how just hard it can be to like feel that the stuff you want to be doing is just kind of out of control. Like it's not comfortable, but it is what you need to do. So you need to be able to manage this so that you can move forward. Connie says, I'm so emotional and I wish I could just shut everything out. And it's not a good idea. The more some people actually do it. You know, you can. It probably is harder for women than for men. Like that's kind of a trope that men tend to be like more walled out in our society, just because they have more training that from, you know, childhood on, they get told that men don't cry, and then they're completely walled out. It's a bad idea. It's very bad for your health. It's extremely unhealthy. So yeah, it's better to be able to feel your emotions and just manage them in a way that is healthy and is not going to cause trouble. Because of course, like when you say I'm emotional, I'm assuming that what you mean to say is that your emotions get you into some form of trouble or cause you some pain. But the emotions themselves are not supposed to make you suffer. It's just that we are not very equipped. We are not equipped at all to deal with emotions, just because it's not something that our society teaches us to do. A great book, which I wanted to show you later, but I don't care. I'm going to mention it now. This is the best book, like one of the best books I've ever read. I'm honestly still reading it because it's a Bible. I can't tell you how many times I've read it, because I do read it like, you know, in between I pick a chapter. There's a chapter for each emotion. It's called The Language of Emotions by Carla Mclaren. And if your emotions are driving you crazy, this is the book you want to have. Like it really is, yeah. It's the subtitle is What Your Feelings Are Trying to Tell You. And she, Carla Mclaren, she has done so much research and so much like groundbreaking research that had been never done before on the topic of emotions and how they work together. And it's just, yeah, like get this book. It's definitely gonna help you. And yeah, the devil you know is usually preferred to the unknown. Yes, it is preferred, but it doesn't mean that it is better. That's the thing. So we'll see how we can just, you know, ease this. So basically, those were the two things. Emotions are the driver of human behavior. Two, you can break the emotions into two categories: positive, pleasure, comfort, and negative, pain, fear, discomfort. Okay. Then one thing that's really important to understand is behaviorism. So because you're educated, I'm sure you've heard of behaviorism before. It is basically I'm not sure if we can call it a trend in psychology or a set of techniques, but basically the whole idea of behaviorism is that you can train a um, a person or an animal, like the very famously Pavlov's dog. It was the first animal to be trained in behaviorism. And then you had research made on all sorts of animals: pigeons, rats, and of course humans. And so the idea that you can drive the behavior of an animal or a person based on pain and pleasure is what's at the core of behaviorism. And behaviorism, which was created, I believe, in the end of the 19th century, if I'm correct, has been by now built in to really every layer of our society, like consciously or unconsciously. I think with things like rewards and punishments, like, for example, in school, that obviously existed before. We have a paper trail ever since the Romans, where, like, I don't remember which Roman author. If you know, please tell me in the chat or in the comment below. One Roman author wrote about how to manage slaves, and wrote already about how you could make them do things either by hitting them if they don't, or by giving them food if they do. So it was already known before, but with behaviorism, it has become extremely formalized, and it has been drilled down to a science, and it is built everywhere, from the reward and punishment in school to social media. So yes, you're now currently in YouTube, and if you're watching this, it's probably because at some point you have identified what I'm doing, what I'm saying, with some form of pleasure, growth, enjoyment. Learning new things is an absolute pleasure. I could never go a day without learning something. So if you're the kind of person who think that learning is amazing and you associate learning with pleasure, that's probably the reason why you are now watching this. So, yep, Linda's here, driving but can't come in at a red light. Well, I'm glad you're driving. It means that you have fixed your flat tire, I hope. So that's cool. Yeah, drive safely. You'll be fine. And Cynthia's here. Welcome, Cynthia. Pavlov's dogs. Yes, that was like the first animal that had documented behaviorism behavior, with the idea that basically you could make the dog create some saliva, start salivating at the ring of a bell, even if you weren't showing food, because previously you ring the bell at the same time as the food. So now it's associated. They associated the bell with the food, and now basically they salivate just hearing the bell. That was the whole idea with Pavlov's dog, and it has been declined and elaborated on in so many studies with all sorts of animals, mammals, birds. I don't know if actually it was done with more than mammals and birds, but I see no reason why you couldn't actually do it with other animals too. But yeah, the whole idea is that the beloved social media that we have now has also been built on just checking what causes you to react, and then giving you more of this just to like be able to have you stay more on the platform. And knowing this, and by the way, if you haven't watched the movie, what's the title again? The Social Dilemma. It's on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, and if you aren't really familiar with how this works, watch it. And I was actually pretty surprised that the movie was a really big success like that, and that many people were mind blown by it, because I have been working in a startup before, and I have read the kind of books that the people who make social media read. For example, Hooked by Noor Ariel, which is a very scary book, which explains like how to create products that drive addictive behavior, basically, or addictive or hooking. What did they say? Engaging. Well, yeah, it's the same, right? But if you are not close to this kind of stuff, and this is kind of new to you, you don't understand really how it works, watch The Social Dilemma. It's an amazing movie. It's going to be really helpful, albeit not very empowering, or yeah. It might cause you some discomfort, or even like, yeah, it might not be a pleasurable experience, but I think it's important to know. Because yeah, basically the bottom line is that if you don't use your own emotions to drive your behavior on purpose, someone else will. And like, I hate to like say it this way, it sounds a bit like maybe fear mongering or something. It's really not what I mean to do. It's just, this is how it is. Like, particularly with social media, we all have in our pockets, or I mean, in my case, it's currently lying around. We all have the device that will actually make us drive our behavior successfully if we don't gain awareness of that, and if we don't start learning the kind of techniques or strategy that we can use for it. So that's why I've brought to you the 3 strategies that you can use today. And the first thing that's really, really super important, we always come back to that, is to know your why. Like, you have to know, ideally, when you're doing something, you should always be knowing why you're doing it. Now, I don't think that's possible. Often enough, like, I open the fridge, I stare inside the fridge, I don't know why. It's something I just kind of do. I think I've associated the fridge with pleasure, probably. But you can't always be knowing why you're doing what you're doing, but try to know more of the time. And particularly if you have a project like, say, learning French or learning a language or achieving anything, you have to know why you are doing it, and you have to strengthen your conviction that this is the right thing to do by any ways that you can. So I have already had videos about that. One of the most viewed videos that I made like 4 years ago is about the so-called ARMY method and the relation between knowing your why and the success in French learning. So you can watch that. But it's really, really important that you know why you're doing it, because if you don't, you might just be doing something else, because it's not exactly the most enjoyable experience, well, unless you know how to make it enjoyable, right? Associate the fridge with food, drink, or boredom. Yeah, or all 3 of them, probably. Not so many drinks. I mostly drink water and tea, which are not in the fridge. But yeah, food and boredom, 100%. I'm ashamed of saying it, but yeah, I'm bored sometimes. That happens, especially lately. I have a tendency to be a bit burned out, and yeah, I open my fridge a lot, but it's okay. It's fine. So yeah, know your why. You have to really know why you're doing something, especially if you have a tendency to become depressed, or if you have a tendency to do things that you don't really know what you're doing, like opening the fridge and maybe eating the content of the fridge. Yeah, you need to know what you're doing. And 2, that's when the pain and pleasure thing, it's really important to be able to identify them. You have to use, or you can use, pain and pleasure, or comfort and discomfort to your advantage. And so I've included on the worksheet here a simple journaling exercise, which if you want, you can do it in the chat right now, or you can post it in the comment if you're watching the replay, or you can return to this exercise for anything that you want to achieve, which is not happening right now. And just, pick a journal. I'm committing to journaling more. I've been journaling for 2 days now. I'm proud of myself. I hope it will stick, because it's a really important habit to have, and I'm just not. I just haven't been doing it enough. So yeah. But anyway, you can grab a journal. You can do it in the comments below. You can do it in the chat right now. You have to answer 4 questions. Well, 5 questions. So the first question is, what is it that you want to do that you haven't really been doing? So of course, if you're here and you've been here every week, it is very clear that you have been learning your French. So maybe it's not really happening for you, or it's not really relevant. But maybe there's something else that you would want to be doing, like exercising, or for me, it's journaling, for example. That's really the habit that I'm trying to pick up now. Or I don't know, actually tell me, what's something that you'd like to achieve or to start doing regularly, or whether it's taking the phone and calling someone, getting a job, something like that. It's just think of, it could be more than one thing, because that would be a good way to do the exercise together. All right, so Connie is saying, I do so many things mindlessly. I really need to start paying attention to my own life. Yeah, honestly, that is the hardest part. Like don't beat yourself up if you're not really paying attention to your whole life, because it's the hardest. Like, being present and being aware, man, it's so tough. I have another book that I have here, which I also wanted to share. It's called Good Morning, I Love You. It's about mindfulness. And it's a really, really good book. It was actually recommended to me by one of my students, Scott. So Scott, if you're here, thank you for recommending the book. It's an excellent book. It is a very soft way to ease into better habits. So I definitely recommend this one as well. Cynthia is saying conscious versus unconscious behaviors. I'm not sure what you mean with that. Do you mean like becoming more conscious or something like this? But yeah, so basically the exercise is the following. You pick something that you want, you want to be doing. For me, exercising is also one that's very frequent. I'm good at walking. I just take lots of walks because otherwise I'm always in those four walls and I go crazy. But I'm not that good at going to the gym or, swimming or something like that. I used to swim a lot when I was younger, but then the shit hit the fan and it was just, the habit was lost. But it's something I would like to pick up again. And journaling is my biggest one right now. So you have 4 questions. Once you have picked something, you have 4 questions. So the first question is you have to write down the pain that you associate with taking a particular action. So for example, for me, for journaling, it's not that I feel like it's painful, it's more like resistance. But if I'm not journaling, maybe I can watch another YouTube video. That's gonna be more enjoyable short term. Or I can go, I don't know, really, like it's really bad in my case because it's just resistance. Like I just resist the thing. I don't know why. Fortunately, I have energy clearing skills, so I can do it if I really want to, but just takes a lot of pushing through. And yeah, clearly I'm associating some form of pain to it. I just don't want to. I think the thing is when I journal a lot, I just really have a lot more growth, and sometimes I'm just not ready. It's just too much. It's kind of like neck breaking. So that's one of the pain that I have. And you might have like a long list of pains. Like for example, exercising is not enjoyable, especially not at the beginning. So that could be a pain that you associate with the action. All right, so Errol is here. Welcome back, Errol. Tony is saying awareness of weaknesses in my strength and any strength positive in my weaknesses. Yeah, like these are the kind of things you want to be aware of. So first, write on the page the pain you associate with taking a particular action, the pain or what you're afraid of, these kind of things. The second thing is the pleasure that you receive from not taking the action. So for me, if I'm not journaling, I might just be listening to music or watching another YouTube video or scrolling a bit more through TikTok or through Instagram, or I do scroll a lot lately. I have to stop. Yeah, so this is something that's like, short-term pleasure, literally designed according to the patterns of gambling. Social media is pretty bad for that. So yeah, that's the second one. The third one is what it will cost you if you continue to not take action. And it's like over the next 4 to 5 years. So I know that if I continue to not journal, I will stay stuck and a lot of things in my life are not going to make progress. And there are many things that I don't want to have to keep having stuck, like my income, my health, my even dating life tends to be stuck from time to time. Some like the kind of like feelings or like state of mind that I get stuck in, like all of that is going to cost me a lot. That's why I want to get into journaling. So, the third thing, you write what it will cost you if you continue to not do it. And the last thing is what you will gain over the next 3 to 5 years if you do solve this problem now. So if I do solve my journaling problem, I will have a lot more growth. I will be able to solve some issues that I have now, which, for example, one issue that I have is that I really want to grow this channel a lot more, and it's difficult for me. I'm in my natal chart, like my natal astrological chart, I have a terrible 11th house, which is the house of networking and just building an audience and building influence. It's the most challenging part for me. Like it was always hard. It was hard when I was in school, just having to deal with a lot of people. I'm really good at one-on-one relationships and like a small group of friends, but beyond that, it's what I'm terrible at. And I want to solve this. I want to find a way to either outsource some of the work or find a way that it becomes easier. And I know that the best way that I can find those solutions is through journaling. So most likely I will have this solution to that. Of course, it means that my income will also grow and things like that. Like for example, if you learn French successfully, you'll be able to travel. You might be able to get a better job or a more enjoyable job. You might be able to communicate more closely with someone that you care about. All of that stuff. So these are all the things that you want to write down. And it's an exercise that you can repeat periodically if you find that you have lost motivation. Typically, after you've done this exercise, you get a boost in motivation for at least a few days. It's not an end-all be-all solution, but it is a way to jumpstart yourself. The exercise, by the way, is by Tony Robbins. It's the first or second, I believe, exercise in his little program, Personal Power. It's pretty old, but it still works. So let's see, we got some input here. Tony is saying the pain and fear is associated in learning French. It's too much structure and direct learning as it is for fun nowadays. Yeah, this is actually interesting because beyond this exercise, it's really interesting that you have the association between structure and directed learning and learning French, because you don't need structure and directed learning. To be honest, like all you need is this, okay, right? Selection, activation, immersion, and safe practice. And honestly, if it's only for fun, if you don't actually have any kind of like short-term goal, you can probably get away with just this one, like just immersion. Like just watch the kind of things that you enjoy, listen to the podcast that you enjoy, watch French TV, and it will actually help you a lot, grow a lot of French. Of course, you're not going to be able to speak unless you have the last one, which is practice. But you might also want to just hang out with a friend and practice French. So yeah, that's like here I would both do the exercise and like listing everything you associate, and also just sometimes question the association, because for example, this one is not actually necessary and it might just be holding you back because you have a wrong idea of what it takes to learn French in your case. So yeah, like you don't have to have structure and directed learning if you don't want to, especially not if it's all just for fun. So that was the second strategy. And the third thing we have, Connie is saying, I'm learning French for extremely petty reasons, so I enjoy it. Well, fine. Like it's just as long as you enjoy your reasons and you enjoy what you're doing, that's the whole purpose. So yeah, keep doing that. It's working. And the third thing, which is the most important, is to learn to identify, understand, and release your emotions. And I shared 3 different ways to do that. So the first, something that I really love to be doing myself, when I have an emotion which I feel is uncomfortable, I like to really feel into the emotion and let it go. So if it's something like fear or hunger or even shame is hard because it's icky. You don't want to be feeling this. But negative emotions in general, the problem with negative emotions is that you don't want to feel them. And if you don't feel, like, emotions are not meant to stay. They are meant to be felt very strongly and then to be released. It's just like an energetic process that you have in your body or in your energetic field, if you believe in that, or if you understand this. They are just meant to be a passing situation. But if you don't let them be felt, that's when they will be stuck and they will overwhelm you. So I think we're really afraid of emotions, especially negative emotions, because we are afraid that we will drown in them. But really the opposite happens. If you dive in them very strongly, like of course you have to do it when you're in a safe space. I'm lucky that I live alone, so I'm most of the time in the safe space, which is something, of course, that I built for myself. It's not like it jumped on my knees, but I work from home and I live alone, so I don't have a lot of human warmth, but I have a lot of safety, so that's cool. And so I really like when I start feeling that I have an emotion, which is like I don't want, I'm like, okay, like, this is here, want it or not, I'm accepting it, I'm accepting that it's here, and then I just really feel into it, and I'm so angry or so afraid or so ashamed or guilty or whatever for a solid 1 or 2 minutes, and then it leaves. It goes away. Like, you're not supposed to dwell on it, but you are actually supposed to really like go into the depth of it and feel it, and you don't even need to understand it most of the time. It's just like feel into it, and then it will move away from you and it will be replaced by the next one, which is typical of positive emotions. So it's the easiest way to do it, and easiest and most effective, not most effective, but short-term most effective way, because the third one is things like practicing mindfulness and emotional intelligence. You have to go through the processes in this book to really be able to understand that, or individually for each emotion, the processes in this book. It's quite a long-term commitment. Personally, I enjoy it. I think it's one of the most important things that you can be doing, and one of the most beneficial things for yourself and also for your loved ones, because they'll often suffer from your emotions, and vice versa. You'll have to like deal with their emotions as well. So I think it's one of the most important things you can do, but it takes some time, and it might be a bit frustrating for a while. So another thing that you can do, which I find is a short-term fix, and it's a bit of a spiritual bypassing thing. So I was hesitating to include it, but I find that it's a lot helpful, especially if you don't have time. And it's to move up the emotional scale. I wrote on the paper that it's a short-term fix, and you have a picture of the emotional guidance scale here. If you type on Google emotional guidance scale, you'll find different versions of that. but basically the bottom line is like that's more or less always the same kind of order. And we have the idea in the spiritual realm, or like in the law of attraction community, that emotions that are most positive vibrate higher, and emotions that are most negative vibrate lower. And so instead of visualizing emotions as two poles, pleasure and pain, like we did before, you can instead visualize them as a spectrum, with pain at the bottom and pleasure at the top, or more like the lower half is pain and the upper half is pleasure. And so you have all of these emotions just neatly lined up depending on how painful or pleasurable they are. And in the middle, you have emotions like overwhelmment. That's painful. I would say, yeah, this scale is interesting, but like contentment probably is perhaps the best, the first one, which is positive in here. So, it's boredom and then contentment. When you're bored, it's actually pretty easy to become content. You just have to like shift your emotions, like shift your thoughts, for example. Sometimes, I could be lying around or sitting around like, oh, I'm bored, like I don't love stuff. And it's very easy to switch that to, oh yeah, but my life is mostly okay. Objectively, things aren't that bad. Like I get to sit here and be bored. It's not like I'm in utter pain, So it's easy to like make this jump, for example. And for each step on this scale, it's really easy to make the jump. And this is actually a skill that you can use with friends. And I've had fascinating results from using this with friends. I actually have a copy of this. It's not exactly this one, but it's a similar one that I keep in my wallet. I actually put it there before the pandemic, back when I was, walking around. Now I'm not walking around so much, but it's good to have that at hand, especially if you're talking to someone. Like I have friends that can get themselves into really bad spiral of emotions where like they get stuck in blame or anger or insecurity, guilt, these kind of things. And if you have someone that is stuck in these emotions, you can actually help them move, step by step up the scale. Please tell me if that makes sense, because I'm not sure that I'm explaining it correctly. One book that explains it really well is this one. I did not quote it on the list, but Super Attractor by Gabby Bernstein. There's a chapter where she explains how she's been using it with a little boy, and it's something like it works. Like if you have a friend who's feeling jealous because their partner is with someone else, or doing something else or whatever, it's very easy to get them through like to hatred, like as hating the thing that the partner is doing, and then into anger, just being angry that the partner is not with them, and then discouragement, as in, oh, I don't know what to do, my partner is not here, it's sad, and then into blame, where, oh, it's all his fault, like I hate him. Like for some reason, my friends have a lot of male partners. I think it was probably because I have a lot of male friends. I hate him, or like I hate this, or like it's the fault of his work or whatever. And then Connie is saying I'm explaining it well. Cool. I'm glad it makes sense. And then into worry, like, oh my God, like what if this happens, or like what if he can never like really spend time with me, and then you can move into doubt, like, oh my God, like what if the relationship, I'm not sure about this relationship, it's kind of disappointment. Oh, I wish it would be better. I thought it would be better than that. And then you have overwhelmment, which is like, it's likely a bit like different in nature, but it can be like, oh my God, like there's so much to do. Like, of course, like my partner has so much to do. I have so much to do. I just wish life would be easier. And then you can move very easily in frustration and impatience. Like, oh my God, like I want this to be over already. Pessimism, like, oh, it's always really bad anyway. And then you have boredom, which is like, oh, I'm so annoyed with that. I'm so bored. It just never ends. And then that's when you can move into contentment, like I said before. Oh, well, yeah, I guess it's not that bad. Like, life's kind of okay. And then you can move into hopefulness, like, oh, hopefully I can get better, next week, or we'll have a chat, it will go better. And then you have positive expectations, believe that it will go better, and then you really like up the scale, and you can be enthusiastic and passionate, and just feeling eventually empowered. Like you can go all the way up to the scale, and you can do it for yourself, and you can also do it for a friend. This is also an amazing dating skill if you're having the capacity to help someone feel better because you know how the emotions are ordered, it's just a really powerful thing to do with other people and also with yourself. Now, the downside of that, I have to tell you, is that it's not as good, it's not nearly as good as doing the practice that are, for example, in this book, or even just feeling the emotions and letting them go. It's something that you can use short term to just give yourself a quick fix, but it's very close to a case of spiritual bypassing. And if you just push down your negative emotions by just artificially working your way up the scale, they will come back. And sure, you can always work your way up the scale if you need it again, but at some point you'll have to address it. Otherwise, you're just gonna have them pushed down and they'll be part of your energy and they'll be part of you forever until they have really managed to submerge you. And that is, like, I think, a great way of becoming burned out. And maybe that's what I've been doing. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's good to know this practice, especially if you don't have a lot of time and you have things to do, or if you just really want to show up for someone or show up for something. Like, for example, I show up every week for this class. Very happy that I managed to do it this week again. If you have to show up, that's a good way to, you know, fix yourself for the time that you need to show up, and then you can return to a practice that requires a bit more of a sacred space, right? So does this make sense? I know that it's not very connected to French learning, but it honestly just applies to everything, especially if you have to show up, for example, for a French exam and you're feeling very pessimistic about it. You can move your way up to the up the emotional scale, and then, you know, you take your exam, you finish it, you pass, and then you're good. And you can deal with your emotions later if they're still there. So yeah. Tony is saying it makes sense. One, others are worse off than you, and two, the emotion is not worth the energy. Not really sure what you mean with that. Can you clarify what you're saying? I'm not really sure I get it. So yeah, but basically that was the content that I had for today. I still have a French idiom, of course, because you don't touch a running system. On change pas une équipe qui gagne. Also not the idiom of the week, but that's the way. Actually, let me write that down. On ne change pas une équipe qui gagne. So it means literally you don't change a winning team, but it also basically would translate as you don't touch a running system. Like, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And today's idiom of the week, this week's idiom is chat échaudé craint l'eau froide. So that's more like a proverb. And I had to research what échaudé means. And échaudé just means, yeah, indeed means something that has been burnt. It has been used mostly for in gardening for vegetables. So plants, if they have been burned by the sun, we can use the word échaudé. It's a very rare word, and to be honest, I've only really ever heard it used in this expression. Chien, chat échaudé craint l'eau froide. So it means a burnt cat, a cat that's been too hot is afraid of cold water. And basically, I think it represents very well what we were saying about behaviorism, that you tend to overcompensate. And if you have been burned by something, or if you have been hurt before, you become more fearful. That's what this proverb says. All right, so Connie is saying nothing with emotions are linear. It goes back and forth. The goal is to try to continue in a positive direction. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And that's honestly, like, the whole point of this book is that emotions are meant to flow. So, you know, back and forth, or like in all possible directions. And it's just, they're meant to do this. And the way that you can continue in a positive direction is if you appropriately deal with the negative emotions and you get the message that they want to give you. So I think the message is a bit too much for me to go into that, and probably I wouldn't do it nearly as well as the author of this book does it. So I really very strongly recommend you read this book. It's truly a life-changing book. So yeah. Tony's saying some emotion, although necessary, can be overwhelming. Yes, it's a skill to become able to feel your emotion without being completely overwhelmed. I mean, as someone who has been having panic attacks before, I'm not dismissing that. Like, you can have a complete mental breakdown, and that's not a good thing. But mostly I've noticed that the panic attacks and mental breakdowns, they happen because of the accumulation of emotions that you haven't dealt with before. So it's basically a skill to catch a negative emotion early so that you can just really feel into it and release it and get the message and the wisdom from it. According to Carla Mclaren, every emotion has basically 2 questions that they want you to ask. And for example, for sadness, that's, I believe, I'm not going to remember it. I don't know where I'm going with that. It's listed somewhere, but I have too many too many links, too many little connections. I can't find it. Sorry, just too many stuff on this book. But I think it's like what needs to be rejuvenated and what needs to be released completely. I'm not sure. Maybe it's depression or sadness, but something like that. Basically, every emotion is a message from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind that there is some action to be taken. There is some message to be received, something to be understood, some lesson to be learned before you can move forward. So, yeah. All right. Do you have any questions? Else we get into the French summary where I try to re-explain this, but in French. Which is going to be fun because I don't have an emotional guidance scale in French. So let's see what we can do. All right. You ready for the French summary? Donc, aujourd'hui, on parle des stratégies qu'on peut utiliser pour apprendre avec ses émotions. Et donc, la première chose qu'on a dite et qui est très importante de comprendre et pas seulement comprendre, mais accepter, c'est que les émotions, c'est ce qui guide le comportement des humains. Donc, mon comportement, votre comportement, son comportement, leur comportement, ça, c'est guidé par les émotions. Il y a beaucoup de gens qui pensent qu'ils sont absolument rationnels et toutes ces personnes ont tort. Aucun être humain n'est rationnel. On peut essayer de prétendre qu'on est rationnel, mais en réalité, c'est surtout les émotions qui nous gouvernent. Et donc, être au courant de ces émotions, comprendre ces émotions ou au moins pouvoir identifier ces émotions, c'est la première étape pour pouvoir les utiliser de manière efficace et pour pouvoir vivre sa vie sans être complètement l'esclave de ses émotions, mais au contraire en utilisant ces émotions pour avancer. Donc ça, c'est quelque chose de très important. Nous sommes tous émotionnels, nous sommes des êtres d'émotions et les émotions, c'est ça qui nous guide. La deuxième chose qui est importante, c'est qu'il faut comprendre qu'on peut voir les émotions comme deux pôles. Donc il y a les émotions positives d'un côté, qui sont le plaisir, le confort et les choses comme ça. Et de l'autre côté, vous avez les émotions négatives, qui sont la douleur, la souffrance, la peur et l'inconfort. Donc on peut regarder, on peut voir les émotions comme deux pôles comme ça. Okay? Ça, c'est important. Et ce qu'il faut aussi comprendre, c'est qu'on a ce qui s'appelle le behaviorisme, ou le comportementalisme, il y a ce mot en français. Et c'est une théorie psychologique, ou c'est plutôt pas une théorie, mais plutôt une découverte psychologique, qui dit qu'en fait, en comprenant les émotions positives et les émotions négatives, et en associant autre chose avec ces émotions, on peut changer le comportement des animaux et aussi des êtres humains. Donc, comme par exemple le chien de Pavlov, ou comme des pigeons, des rats ou des humains. Et ces principes, donc c'est pas nouveau, hein, c'est quelque chose qui existait depuis très longtemps. Même les Romains avaient écrit des livres sur comment gérer les esclaves en utilisant ces deux pôles émotionnels. Mais depuis peu de temps, c'est vraiment été intégré dans toutes les parties de notre société ou de notre vie exprès. C'est ça le truc, c'est que c'est pas au hasard, ça a été intégré de manière vraiment délibérée, particulièrement dans les réseaux sociaux. Les réseaux sociaux et puis des choses comme les systèmes de récompense et de punition, par exemple à l'école ou même vos parents, quand vous étiez enfant, probablement vous utilisez des choses comme ça, ou si vous avez des enfants, vous utilisez probablement des choses comme ça un petit peu pour essayer de les guider dans la bonne direction. Et donc ça, qu'il faut comprendre, surtout avec les réseaux sociaux ou les médias sociaux, c'est qu'en fait, malheureusement, et j'aime pas dire ça, on a l'impression, ça fait un peu théorie du complot, mais c'est vrai, si vous utilisez pas vos émotions à bon escient, si vous n'utilisez pas vos émotions pour faire ce que vous voulez faire, eh bien, quelqu'un d'autre le fera. Quelqu'un d'autre utilisera vos émotions pour vous faire faire ce que eux, ils veulent que vous fassiez. Donc, on est arrivé à un point de notre évolution sociale ou de notre évolution d'humain où c'est absolument critique, c'est très important d'arriver à comprendre et à utiliser nos émotions de manière à faire ce que nous, on veut faire et pas ce que d'autres personnes veulent nous faire faire. Donc ça, c'est super important. Et c'est pour ça qu'aujourd'hui, j'ai voulu vous présenter 3 stratégies qui sont très utiles pour utiliser vos émotions et vous guider dans la bonne direction. Donc la première stratégie dont on a parlé maintes et maintes fois sur cette chaîne, c'est de savoir pourquoi. Sachez pourquoi vous faites quelque chose et surtout si c'est un but que vous avez, si c'est par exemple d'apprendre le français ou d'avoir un nouveau travail ou de déménager quelque part ou n'importe quel but que vous avez, c'est important de savoir vraiment très clairement pourquoi vous voulez faire et de renforcer votre conviction de l'importance de ce but. Donc ça, c'est la première chose, parce que si vous savez vraiment pourquoi, vraiment très fort, si vous avez de vraies raisons de vouloir faire ce que vous voulez faire, ce sera moins difficile pour vos émotions de vous empêcher de vous empêcher d'aller dans cette direction. Vous aurez des émotions positives associées à ce but, en fait. Ça, c'est la première chose. La deuxième chose, c'est d'utiliser les émotions de plaisir ou de confort et de douleur et d'inconfort à votre avantage. Et pour ça, j'ai partagé un exercice de journaling, un exercice d'écriture qui nous vient de Tony Robbins, qui a été inclus dans le programme Personal Power 2. Et donc, cet exercice est très simple. Donc, d'abord, il faut choisir une chose que vous voulez faire, mais que vous n'avez pas vraiment réussi à faire jusqu'à maintenant. Et vous allez répondre à 4 questions. La première, c'est quelle est la douleur, la peur, les émotions négatives qui sont associées avec cette action. Si par exemple, l'action, c'est faire de l'exercice ou faire du sport, et bien faire du sport, surtout au début, c'est désagréable. Donc, vous pouvez faire toute une liste des choses négatives que vous associez avec cette action. Si c'est quelque chose que vous voulez faire et que vous ne l'avez pas fait, il n'y a aucun doute que vous associez des émotions négatives avec ça. Et aussi, probablement, vous associez des émotions positives avec le fait de ne pas le faire. Par exemple, c'est beaucoup plus facile de rester devant YouTube ou devant la télé que d'aller faire du sport. Donc ça, c'est une émotion positive ou une sorte de plaisir qu'on obtient par le fait de ne pas faire du sport ou de ne pas faire ce qu'on a dit qu'on voulait faire. Donc ça, c'est la deuxième question. La troisième question, c'est qu'est-ce que ça vous coûtera si vous ne faites pas les actions en question. Donc, si vous ne faites pas de sport, peut-être que vous allez être en mauvaise santé. Peut-être que vous allez accumuler un petit peu de poids que vous ne voulez pas avoir. Peut-être que vous allez vous sentir faible, ou vous allez vous sentir ralenti, ou vous n'allez pas avoir la vitalité que vous voulez. Donc ça, c'est toute la liste des choses que ça va vous coûter si vous n'avancez pas. Par exemple, si vous n'apprenez pas le français aussi bien que vous voulez, peut-être que vous pourrez pas communiquer avec une personne qui est importante pour vous, ou vous pourrez pas voyager autant que vous voulez, ou vous pourrez pas avoir autant de fluidité dans votre travail ou autant de capacité à travailler, vous pourrez pas avoir un nouveau travail. Ça, c'est la liste des choses voilà. Combien ça va vous coûter si vous if you don't get over yourself, je sais pas dire ça en français, si vous réglez pas ce problème. Et enfin, la dernière chose, c'est toutes les choses que vous allez gagner au cours des 3 à 5 années qui suivent si vous réglez ce problème. Donc, j'avais donné l'exemple, par exemple, que pour moi, ce qui est difficile, c'est d'écrire chaque jour. Je sais pas pourquoi, j'ai pas vraiment d'explication, mais en tout cas, c'est très difficile. Et donc, je sais que si je le fais, ça va me permettre de régler beaucoup de problèmes parce que je réfléchirai plus, parce que j'aurai plus l'opportunité de fixer les choses que j'apprends et ce sera juste généralement quelque chose de très utile. Et sur 3 ou 5 ans, je pense que ça peut facilement changer ma vie de manière complète. Je pense que je peux gagner beaucoup plus d'argent, je peux avoir des relations beaucoup plus agréables, je peux faire beaucoup plus de choses que je peux pas faire maintenant si je me mets à avoir cette habitude. Donc ça, c'est vraiment le but, c'est d'avoir une vision d'ensemble de ce qui ça va vous apporter. Pas seulement l'avantage que vous avez maintenant, parce que maintenant, si je ne prends pas mon journal et si je n'écris pas, l'avantage principal, c'est que je vais pouvoir regarder une autre vidéo. C'est pas terrible par rapport à plus d'argent, des meilleures relations, un business qui tourne mieux, probablement une équipe plus large ou une équipe plus efficace. Voilà. Si je dois choisir, oui, effectivement, je vais prendre mon journal et je vais écrire. Et la raison pour laquelle on parle de 3 à 5 ans, c'est parce que c'est important de le voir sur le long terme. Parce que sur le court terme, ça vous coûtera forcément plus de faire ce que vous voulez faire que de ne pas le faire. C'est pour ça qu'en fait, on ne fait pas grand-chose. Parce que sur le court terme, il y a une sorte de net négatif. Donc ça, c'était l'exercice numéro 2. C'est très pratique. Vous pouvez le faire de temps en temps. Moi, je le fais relativement souvent pour me rendre compte que, oui, il faut vraiment que je fasse ces choses. Et vous prenez une demi-heure pour faire cet exercice vraiment clairement. Ça vous motive pendant plusieurs jours. Et ça, c'est très bien. Mais ça reste quand même un système assez court terme. Donc ensuite, j'ai parlé de l'approche plutôt de long terme, qui est d'identifier, comprendre et surtout laisser partir ses émotions. Et j'ai partagé ces 2 livres, donc Good Morning, I Love You de Shona Shapiro et The Language of Emotions de Carla Mclaren. Et j'ai partagé 2 stratégies. Donc, vous pouvez évidemment pratiquer les stratégies qui sont dans ces livres que j'ai appelées Mindfulness et Intelligence émotionnelle. Je ne sais même pas dire Mindfulness en français, la conscience, je suppose. Et deux autres stratégies que vous pouvez pratiquer. Donc la première, que je pratique beaucoup très régulièrement, c'est de vraiment ressentir votre émotion et ensuite la laisser partir quand vous avez fini de la ressentir. À chaque fois que j'ai une émotion négative et si j'ai un petit peu de temps et si je m'en rends compte, parce que la difficulté, c'est qu'il faut s'en rendre compte. Parce qu'en général, quand on a une émotion négative, on a immédiatement l'impulsion de vouloir la repousser pour ne pas la ressentir. Mais en fait, c'est l'inverse qu'il faut faire. Ce qu'il faut faire, c'est « Oh, ok, je suis en colère. Oh, je suis triste. » Il faut vraiment ressentir son émotion. Vous pouvez prendre… Ça prend pas plus de 2 minutes en général, ça prend vraiment pas longtemps. Mais vraiment ressentir l'émotion de manière très intense et ensuite la laisser partir. En général, on est fatigué après, mais c'est une bonne fatigue. Donc ça, c'est la première chose. C'est très pratique et c'est très facile à faire. Il faut juste s'en rendre compte et il faut être dans un espace où soit on est tout seul, soit on est avec des gens qui comprennent ça. La deuxième chose que j'ai partagée, c'était là, c'est le moment où je ne peux plus parler français. L'échelle d'émotions, ok? Donc, j'ai partagé cette échelle des émotions. Si vous avez des émotions négatives, si par exemple vous êtes en colère, ça reste assez facile de devenir plutôt découragé. Oh, je déteste ça, c'est horrible. Oh, je suis plutôt, ouais, j'ai pas envie d'avancer. Vous voyez, ça fait juste un petit saut. Et donc, vous pouvez ensuite placer sur le blâme. Donc, ah, c'est de leur faute. Franchement, si c'était pas à cause d'eux, on n'aurait pas de problème. Vous pouvez passer ensuite sur l'inquiétude. Vous voyez, voilà, je m'inquiète, j'ai peur que ça s'améliore jamais. Vous pouvez passer sur le doute. Oh, c'est peut-être de ma faute, je suis pas très… Ouais, ça va peut-être pas fonctionner. Ensuite, la déception. Oh, j'espérais que ça serait mieux. Des choses comme ça, ok? Donc, vous comprenez l'idée. Je vous l'ai expliqué déjà en anglais. Ça marche bien. Par contre, ce dont il faut se rendre compte, c'est que c'est pas quelque chose qui permet de ressentir vos émotions vraiment fort et ça vous permet pas forcément de comprendre le message dans vos émotions. Donc, c'est plutôt une solution de court terme. C'est un petit peu une sorte de raccourci spirituel. Je sais pas dire spiritual bypassing en français. Mais effectivement, c'est quelque chose qui va pas régler vos problèmes sur le long terme. Vos émotions négatives vont revenir si vous faites ça. Mais c'est très utile si vous avez besoin de vous présenter quelque part et de faire quelque chose. Si vous avez un examen, par exemple, vous pouvez vous mettre dans un état d'esprit qui va vous permettre de faire votre examen. Et comme ça, vous faites la chose que vous avez à faire. Et après, vous pouvez évidemment vous occuper de vos émotions plus tard quand elles reviennent. Donc voilà, c'était à peu près tout ce que je voulais partager aujourd'hui. On a aussi le proverbe de la semaine qui est « chat échaudé craint l'eau froide », ce qui veut dire qu'effectivement, quand vous avez fait face à quelque chose de désagréable, vous avez tendance à être beaucoup plus prudent. Voilà, donc le chat qui a eu chaud et maintenant a peur de l'eau froide parce qu'il il est plus prudent. Ouais. Voilà, c'était le résumé français. So that was the French summary. I hope you understood it. I got the impression that I was speaking extremely fast, so I hope that was fine. I was trying to not ramble for half an hour because we don't have half an hour. We only have about 7 minutes left. But yes, if you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any topics that you'd like me to go over, I think next week I will do French and German, like how to learn French and German, because I promised that I would do that. Another one I have is learning French with your favorite celebrities. So tell me if that's something you're interested in. I will be making more celebrities videos, so videos with people who speak French. You probably noticed that I have released a new video with Timothée Chalamet, which I'm very happy about because those videos are always very appreciated by the YouTube community because, I don't know, for some reason, Timothée Chalamet is just everybody's darling for the last few years. So I'm really happy about that. Yeah. And also I've found that there are more interviews with him, so I'll definitely make more videos. Yeah. It was fast. I kind of understood about the part of it. Yeah, sorry about that. You can't rewatch it and slow it down, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just a bit, I'm not sure. I'm just a bit pressed lately. Like, yeah, I need to do something about that burnout, to be honest. I'm going to go to Dubai from approximately the 11th of October to the 20th. It's like a good week. I'm not going to be doing any YouTube live or any thing during that week. It's just going to be like my first week of holiday that I've had in 3 years, I think. So yeah, I look forward to that. I'm hoping that when I come back, I'll be more in shape to do things. But I'm happy that I've been able to show up here and that you are with me and you've participated to the conversation. That was pretty amazing. So yeah, any other question, any other thing I can do for you while I'm here? It was fine. It's real French and I need to get used to it. Yeah, honestly, like it's part of your immersion practice. Like you're not supposed to understand everything. You're just supposed to be able to have it here and have it in the background and just not beat yourself up for not understanding everything. Like sometimes I even when I listen to English, if the people have a strong accent or though they speak fast for whichever reason, it can happen to me that I don't understand everything they say, and it's fine. It's part of the deal. It's worse with other languages, like with German, with Spanish. Like I understand a lot less, but I still do manage to deal with it because I'm used to the immersion and to the fact that it's okay to not understand everything. Tony saying I understood most of it, but used the worksheet for the bits I might not have. That is why the worksheet is here. That's the whole point. So yeah, please let me know if there are any topics. I'm just slowly running out of topics, but I think I'm gonna do French, German, and also one about learning French with your favorite celebrities or using your own taste to learn French, but like taste for people in particular or for music or things like that. Yeah, please tell me if those are topics that you'd like to have, or if you wouldn't like to have them, please tell me what you'd like to have instead. Yeah, I need to tell you that you can still join the French Fluency Accelerator. We don't have a particular thing going on yet, but yesterday I ran a live class, which was really cool with the scholarship students who are just like participating really nicely. I was giving a class to them 2 hours ago, no, 3 hours ago now. And yeah, it's a really nice community. I'm just really happy that I've started to do these weekly coaching calls to like help people with their French practice and just answering questions. So yeah, it is working really well. If you would like to join us, please join us. You have the link in the description below and also in the worksheet. And yeah, if there are no further questions, I'm going to sign off, and I will see you next Sunday and hopefully sooner in videos. Right. Thank you so much for being here and being with me. Have a good week, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye.